Welcome to the Commercial Cash Flow Show. I'm your host, Ronny with Kingly Acquisitions. Today's guests are Ben Suttles and Feras Moussa with Disrupt Equity. And today we're going to be talking about their story on how they acquired 1,200 units in the past 12 months. And currently we are acquiring over $23 million worth of real estate in Atlanta, Georgia. We're going to be walking through real life case studies, including one deal that did a 365% return to their investors in 2.5 years. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Commercial Cash Flow Show.
Propelio TV is sponsored by Noble Mortgage and Investments, Batch Skip Tracing, CreativeCashFlow.com, and Lifeonaire.
Welcome back to the Commercial Cash Flow Show. I'm your host, Ronny Phillip. So today I have some very, very special guests on the show. These guys have been such great people in my life. We're partners on 2 deals in Atlanta, Georgia. Ben and Feras with Disrupt Equity. Welcome to the Commercial Cash Flow Show.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah,
we appreciate the
Ronny.
invite, man.
So I'm really excited about this episode about y'all's journey in multifamily real estate. I've seen the rocket ship y'all are on. So kind of dive into, how y'all got started in real estate and then, go from there. So
Go ahead, man.
Yeah, so my background, I guess, is a little different. So my background is actually software. I grew up, always kind of loved the software world. Graduated computer science from University of Texas and interned at Microsoft and went full-time at Microsoft. Did it, loved it, and at the same time, I was always an entrepreneur. I had my own website company in high school, had that and, kind of really throughout college. And so fast forward, kind of the big company thing came around. I'm like, all right, let me do this for a little bit. So did Microsoft about 3 years after I left Microsoft and started a software company. Did that for a few years, had extra capital I was looking to deploy. And so really started learning a lot more about real estate, started listening to all the podcasts, reading all the books, and kind of figuring out, how I wanted to get in. And so my parents thought I was crazy because before I moved back to Houston, I bought a 4-plex. So I had it under contract and I called a random broker and I'm like, hey, I've already done all the numbers. I just need you to buy it for me because you have to transact with the broker. And so really got my first feel for multifamily. Did that and kind of, grew it up, kind of scaled out the business and realized it was a lot of brain damage, for lack of a better word. It's kind of, with single family, you can be very successful, but it's a lot of properties, a lot of loans, a lot of insurance policies. And so kind of realized it wasn't quite what I wanted and, was going to go do my own apartment. And luckily I didn't win that one and then learned about syndication, started learning a lot. And then kind of really the rest is history. I met Ben and then together we started Disrupt Equity and we've been kind of running since then.
So how did y'all meet?
Go ahead.
Now, I'll tell you, so it was kind of part of just getting more into the scene. I was going to meetups, went to all the meetups in Houston. Ben was running one of them. So kind of met Ben for the first time. Realized he was charming, great guy. And so, got to know him much better. And then I was actually going to Atlanta to look at a property. And so, I was going to go buy this thing syndicated and, figure it out. And I was talking to Ben at the time, running numbers. I'm like, hey, are you interested? And that kind of really helped accelerate the relationship, I guess. And, realized we were just really aligned in kind of goals and, partnered up on that deal and started Disrupt Equity. And that's really kind of the first, I'd say, how we met and kind of the first, how we got into that first deal. So
Awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I came from an IT background as well. Unlike Feras, he was on the smart side of IT. I was on the sales and business development side, so I wasn't, I was just the guy there just kind of telling people how much stuff costs. But got into real estate about 5 years ago. Like a lot of people got in through single family, did some wholesaling, did some rentals, that type of stuff for a couple of years. Realized that just like Feras, really wasn't scalable. Unless you do it, to a very big level, right? So to all my single family gals and guys, I know that there's people that make a lot of money, but it just wasn't for me at the time, right? So I started looking for ways that I could scale, and stuff that was a little bit more aligned with my skill set, which was sales and business development and kind of networking and that type of thing. And I found commercial real estate. And within commercial real estate, I was kind of looking for more of a niche. And I came across multifamily, and I came up through kind of the guru scene and, all that good stuff and learned some things and met some good people, but I was mainly down kind of on my own in Houston doing my own thing through the meetup, and then that's kind of where Feras and me kind of first synced up. But a partnership really for us is it's all about alignment of goals. You obviously you're hanging out with this person for quite a while, right? You got to like them first, So that's the first goal, right? And then the second goal is alignment of what's the end game here? What is the why? And what are we trying to accomplish? And that was very evident that me and Feras kind of had that alignment pretty quickly on. And we've been able to scale up since then, starting Disrupt about 18 months ago and just been growing ever since.
Yeah, and I want y'all to touch in what each of y'all do as partners, because I feel like it's working with y'all directly on 2 deals. I've seen how much of a machine y'all are in like everything, right? But I want the audience to realize how important partnerships are, especially in multifamily. So I think y'all be the perfect people to talk about this.
That's funny. So we're probably the worst example of it, just because. Well, so a lot of times you hear, one person is focused on this part, one person is on that. Where I'd say Ben and I mean, we both have the same work ethic, and our goal is to accomplish the same end goal. And so we'll both roll up our hands where needed. And so that said, maybe we focus a little more on one part versus the other, but we're pretty much, we kind of wear all hats as needed, right? And so it depends on where a deal is through the cycle, and then separately on the operations side, we kind of divide and conquer. Like I focus more on some of the Atlanta deals from the operations side. He focuses more on kind of the Texas deals, but it's really kind of dependent on what's going on. So it's not like a straight divide. Hey, you're doing just this, I'm doing this.
And as a segue for that, though, I mean, as we grow, right, there has to be more of that delegation, and we're kind of deconstructing our company at this point to kind of further divide up, who does what, and who enjoys doing what things and who doesn't enjoy doing other things. And then on top of that, we've hired on staff who also does parts of the process as well. So I think it's you eventually build up your business, and it's like, what do I want to do within the business, right? Do I want to be the visionary? Do I want to be the marketer? Do I want to be the sales and the face of the whole company? Or do I want to be the guy in the background and be, and I think both, me and Feras enjoy kind of speaking and kind of getting out there, because I think part of Disrupt Equity, it's not all about the money. It's not all about scaling up and buying a bunch of units. It's about giving back to people, right? And so I think both me and Feras have that passion. So we get out there, we speak a lot, we do a lot of this type of stuff. And, so in that sense, we're very similar. But, we both have, good skill sets, so we can do the operational side if we need to. We can do the equity raise side if we need to. But we're looking at dividing that up as we grow, because you just have to.
And maybe I think our solution really is kind of where we're landing, is dividing it up more so with our staff, right? Kind of, hiring on the right people and really giving them specific roles and responsibilities while we're kind of spearheading the company, but there is a team behind us. And so really kind of saying, okay, let's bring on this person. This is what they're really good at, and this is the, the kind of the part of the business that they can run with. And so, that's kind of maybe how we started to divide it.
Yeah, I mean, because you're always going to have people that are going to be better underwriters of deals, or maybe they're better at asset management. And, yes, can we do that? And do we do that all right? Yeah, we can, but we don't enjoy that part of the business. Right. So, I always look for how can we delegate some of this process out to people. But I think overall we have similar skill sets, so we can do a lot of the business, which is nice, because if Feras wants to take off and go to Philippines for 2 weeks.
True story.
True story. It's all right.
10 days. 10 days.
10 days. All right. So, but the whole business doesn't fall apart, right? So there's a little bit of cross training there too, right? Which is always a good thing, because you don't want one person to leave and then something,
everything crumbles.
That part of the process pops up, and then you're like, what am I gonna do?
Yeah, because I would say we're both good at business, right? How do you design a business? How do you grow a business, right? From just, kind of start to finish. And like we say, I mean, right now we've grown, and we're a different business than we were 6 months ago. So we're really, our goal kind of next month is starting to, I like to say, like, basically break apart the entire business and kind of put it back together differently, right? Because our goals are different, kind of what we've done is different, our operations are different. So we both enjoy business. We have a passion for it, and, kind of growing a team, fostering that. And so that's I'd say our strength. And so we both have that strength in different ways.
Yeah. So. Entrepreneurship, I think, comes very naturally for both me and Feras. It just happens to be that the vehicle is multifamily investing. But we both built other types of businesses as well. Yeah. So we know about how to scale up a business, how to, hire on staff how to do that type of thing, where a lot of people get stalled out. They'll buy 1 or 2 deals and then they don't know what they're doing, and then they'll be the ones that will usually,
or they'll buy a lot and not, kind of flounder on the operation side. So it's really, it goes hand in hand. And so it's really about being strategic about what we're doing and kind of having a plan. Here's where we're trying to get to. Let's actually set the wheels in motion.
Absolutely.
To get there, so.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And yeah, I think that's really important, especially working with y'all directly. I've seen that on how smooth everything is, going and whatnot. So, it's been really awesome working with y'all. Talk to us about your first deal and, how y'all got started in multifamily, and then, just, going from there.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of talk about it. So, it was a Beaumont deal. It's called Huntington Park. I don't know if anybody can see it up on the screen. It was 92 units. Beaumont, for people that don't know, is about 90 miles east of Houston. It's probably got about 250,000 in the actual Beaumont city, but within the MSA, it's over 400,000. Mainly
pretty big city.
mainly tied to petrochemical. Right, got one of the biggest ports in the country, which a lot of people don't realize. So it's kind of a sleeper, and we were getting kind of priced out in the Houston market. We were looking at a lot of deals, and pricing just wasn't aligning with the returns that we needed for our investors. Right, so we started looking at some of these tertiary markets, and Beaumont was one of those.
What made it attractive?
Well, I mean, I think the fact of the vicinity of Houston, right? For us, we can get there in an hour and a half. So it's a day job, a day trip for us. The fact that we felt that it had a stable market, both from population and job growth perspective. We knew the petrochemical, industry pretty well, having grown up in Houston. We knew that it wasn't just tied to the oil rigs. It was more to the downstream stuff, oil refineries, chemical companies, and then the port. So all of that's fairly stable. So, we like that. And then just the cap rates that were there were very, very attractive. In that time, it was, late 2015, early 2016, we ended up getting this at a 10 cap, but even that was pretty awesome. But, even within Beaumont, it was like an 8, right? Whereas in Houston, it was like a 6.5. So you can see that the values were there, the yield was there. And so vicinity, stable economy, and the values were in our favor, so we could return the types of returns that our investors expected. So that was the initial kind of draw to Beaumont for us, and we've since grown our portfolio on Beaumont. We bought 2 more deals, so we've got we sold this one, but we've got over 400 units, in Beaumont. Yeah.
And I like to tell people, kind of real estate, you don't necessarily want what's sexy. So Beaumont is not a sexy market, right?
No.
But there's 400,000 people there. It's a stable market, and kind of really for our investors, we like yield, right? We're not betting on appreciation. We're not looking to maybe sell it at a premium for, just the magic of the market, right? We're looking for what are the cash flowing assets, where can we find them, and, assets that we can move into and kind of operate and expect them to perform and, be safe for our investors, right? It's constantly about how do you buy strategically to reduce risks for you and your investors.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and go into a little bit of detail about, this deal, like a walkthrough.
Yeah, like I said, 92 units, 1974 build. As people can probably see on the picture, it had flat roofs, it had mansards, so it had that kind of that vintage feel and look to it, right?
All the things most people don't like in a property.
It's not as attractive, when you kind of get a little bit farther along in your career, but as a starter property, this was great. It had been owned by the same ownership group since the 70s. The original developer was still one of the owners on there. They were out of Ohio. They were looking to kind of just liquidate their portfolio in Texas. And we happened to be in the right place at the right time to pick it up at a 10 cap. Had 300,000 in NOI, which is, the bottom line profits, is what we're going to call NOI here, net operating income. And they wanted $3 million for it. So even back then, late 2015, 2016, that's pretty dang good.
Mm-hmm. That was like, what, 32 a door or something?
It was about 32 and change per door. So of course we immediately, that's a great deal. Let's pick it up. Well, the backstory is that one of the principals had passed away 2 or 3 years ago. The heirs of the principal were kind of trying to have a real quiet, under the table type sale because they had never really let the lender know that the person had passed away. So that's really not kosher. But at the end of the day, they sold it. We got it done. Everybody was happy. They walked away, and we got a great asset that was really already stable. for 32 and change a door. So we went through, some CapEx, some improvements, some rehab to the property. We put, I think it was $460,000. We might have this slide on here as well, where we kind of break down the different. Let me get to that real quick. Yeah, this slide right here. So you kind of see, we did a lot of different things, right? So we were just trying to add value and cure deferred maintenance within the property itself. So we went through and we forced appreciation. And we increased the bottom line, the NOI, and then Harvey hits. So that was summer of 2017.
I have a picture of that here too.
Yeah, and I think if we go to this, so these are actual pictures of the property that our property manager had actually sent us. And for people that don't know, obviously Houston had just gotten whacked the day before. And personally, both me and Feras, had family members whose houses had flooded. There was just a lot of personal tragedy, and then. The next day we get this, and it's like a kick to the gut, right? Our first instinct was, make sure everybody was safe. They were. We did have some older tenants, so we obviously made sure that they were taken care of. But, luckily we had flood insurance on this property. Being along the coast, we had the foresight, like, even though this wasn't technically in a flood zone, like a lot of the properties in Houston that flooded, this one wasn't either. And so we had a flood insurance policy on it, even though we didn't need to. And so because of that, we went through FEMA and did our flood insurance claim. And that is a total grind because you're working with the government who wants to do that, right? So we went through that process. On an $8,500 policy, it ended up paying out $2.1 million.
Wow.
So it certainly paid for itself. So now we're on to rehab number 2, right? Like the screen says, and we had to unfortunately terminate 32 leases because the units had been flooded and they just weren't habitable anymore. We took those down to the studs. So we remediated. We took down the studs, remediated, did all new flooring, all new sheetrock, all new cabinets, all new appliances, all new countertops, everything to the nines, granite. Everything, and then also redid the office clubhouse, which we had already done. We redid the pool area, which we had already done. All new ACs, completely revitalized the property. I mean, you don't put 2.1 million times or plus 450,000 into a $3 million property, right? It just doesn't make any sense to do that. The numbers won't work. But in this instance, we, because of the insurance claim, we went ahead and did that. Well, after that's all done, you've got this pretty much turnkey property that we were sitting on that was spitting off cash, and so we were able, it was already spitting off cash, but after that, we were able to improve the NOI even more. So, we took it from the 300,000 in NOI to the 500,000 in NOI. So we not only forced appreciation, but also just through improvements in the operations, we were able to improve the property as well. So you ride that. You had some cap rates that kind of came down. We were no longer at an 8 or 10 cap or whatever. We were down to a 7. So we ended up selling it at a 7 cap to a gentleman here or in Houston.
Yeah. So to kind of pause you there, I mean.
Yep.
Right. For those that don't know, what is forced appreciation? Right. It's basically in single family, Ronny. Right. If you're selling a house. Kind of how do you value that house? It's based on what the comps, the other houses will. In multifamily and commercial in general, right, your valuation is based on what is the income of the property, coupled with kind of where the market is. But, if you buy a property and the next day you can boost the NOI $100,000, well, that $100,000 increase in NOI can usually get you, $1 million in extra value. And so that's what we call, you're kind of forcing the appreciation. So with combination of pushing the NOI, right, and then the market gets stronger. I'll let Ben kind of continue that story.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I throw around these terms and it's like, it's just kind of I rattle it off sometimes, man. But, so we had the stars kind of aligned, right? You had that forcing of appreciation, you had that improvement in the operations of the property, and you had that amount of CapEx, that rehab dollars that were put into this property. So now we're sitting on a ton of equity at this point. So, we kind of went through, an off-market transaction, and we ended up selling it to a gentleman out of Houston on a 7 cap. So he was happy because you're not going to find these types of deals in Houston in a 7 cap. It's going to be more like a 5.5 to a 6. So he felt like he got a good deal. He was looking for a turnkey property. He was, that was where he was at in his career. And so, for folks that are kind of watching this online, you could kind of see the side by side. So this was projected, what we actually talked to our investors about, versus the actuals, what we actually sold the property at. So one highlight I just want to kind of obviously, because this really kind of drills it home, sales price was $32,200 per door. We ended up selling it for $76.1 per door. Wow. So as you can see, that's a ton of money.
Yeah, and that's leverage, right? So the profits are obviously not just that delta in terms of just doubling. So.
Yeah, I mean, and you can kind of take that down, right? So we were already spitting off cash, as I mentioned. So the cash on cash was already about 17% per year, which, for the viewers that are watching this are going to say that's pretty good. Why didn't you hold on to it? Because we could have paid out probably 20 or 30% a year if we really wanted to. But at that point, when you have that much equity that you're sitting on, we're opportunistic. We felt like it was a good time in the market to sell. This gentleman was happy. We were happy. We created a win-win. So, and of course our investors were happy. They got the returns that you can kind of see. So it ended up being a total return of 365%. So for people
in 2.5 years.
In 2.5 years. So for people that are kind of watching, so you've got, say you put $100,000 into our deal, right, into this deal, right? I'm going to give you your $100,000 back, and then on top of that, I would have paid you $365,000 on top of that. So it's pretty powerful.
That's the power of multifamily.
That's
forced appreciation and cap rate compression.
Yeah, I mean, it was
a lot of terms to go research. If you guys
I mean, it's not like I'm not patting myself on the back. There's a lot of these things were just good timing.
Yeah,
dumb luck.
Well,
right?
Timing. So I like to say timing helps make it a unicorn. Right?
Yeah.
You find a deal, an actual opportunity. You do the homework up front. You buy the property, and then you actually operate and do what you're planning to do. Right, you can get a good performing property. Then timing helps turn that good performing property that anyone would have invested in into the unicorn. We go into a deal, we don't tell investors you're going to get 365% return.
No.
Right, that doesn't exist today.
We didn't even
and it's
project
honestly
that.
Never existed, right? And so, but with kind of the combination, like Ben was saying, with timing, you're able to perform that, and so that's
Yeah, and that's the power of multifamily, though, right? Is that you can create so much value. It's not based on the comps or whatever might be down the street. Now they do, some of the brokers still bake that into how they price properties, but this was sold on legit returns that this buyer could make, and he was happy, we were happy, and we walked away. So 140% IRR, which was pretty nice. So that was our first deal. Went full cycle on that last year, and we're pretty proud of that one.
No, I think that this is why I wanted y'all to talk about this, because it's just, you just see what the possibilities are in multifamily, and just to see the different, what Kenny likes to call levers you can pull to add value to the property. I mean, there's so many different ways to do it, through interior upgrades, through renaming the property, through, bumping rents. There's so many different ways on a single family. Like, if the market dips, kind of screwed.
Yeah, I mean, it's even the simplest thing. Like, I was talking to a friend whose dad owns, kind of individually owns an apartment, and all he started doing was charging for parking spots. Mm-hmm. Right. Then I ran the math for him, so he gave me the number of what he was making extra a month, make that into an annualized, and I'm like, okay, well, with today's valuations, just doing that, which really anyone can figure out how to do that. It's nothing special about making reserved parking spots, but he was able to increase the value of the property $700,000. Yeah. And so I mean, it's really about kind of going back to the levers, right? What is the property? What does it have? What's unique about it? And what things can I do to kind of monetize and really push that income?
Yeah, I mean, and just real quickly on the operational side, so obviously this is all revolving around rehab and CapEx and forcing appreciation, right? But on the operational side too, what I wanted to kind of tell the viewers was there was two things that really helped boost that NOI on top of raising rents, right? The former ownership was paying $100,000 a year in insurance. We were able to get a quote for $60,000. Wow. So right there, you're reducing your expenses by $40,000.
By a car.
I mean, yeah. And so you apply a cap rate to that. You're already creating value there. The other thing too was this was an all bills paid property, but bottom line, when you have an all bills paid property, it's in your best interest to reduce utilities. And so we came in, and obviously we replaced all the ACs, we replaced roofs, we replaced, the fluorescent lights with the LEDs. All of that reduced that energy consumption, so therefore reduced the utilities. So that boosted our NOI as well. So those are some of the things that your viewers can do any property, right? Because that's going to boost their bottom line as well. So we coupled that with the cap rate compression and the fact that we dumped so much money into it, and then you have the win-win that we had.
Yeah, I think just how y'all explained all that is really good. We're gonna take a quick break. For those who are watching, please leave questions and comments for Ben, Feras, and I to answer. Anything multifamily investing. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about how we've expanded to Atlanta and how we got in there and the market and different things like that. So stay tuned.
The Propelio Academy, an all-in-one education resource for training in wholesales, subject to wraps, short sales, flips, rentals, BRRRR, property management, and more. Go to propelio.com/academy to get your scholarship today. Propelio.com. What does Propelio offer? Lead generating websites, access to true MLS comps, off-market lead lists, and deal alerts. Get them all today at propelio.com.
Welcome back to the Commercial Cash Flow Show. So we're about to dive into Atlanta, Georgia, and why we like that market. Currently, we just closed on a 212 unit deal over there on Monday. So that was my first multifamily deal, and it was awesome working with y'all. And then we have another one under contract, and people always ask me why Atlanta. So I decided to do a show with my partners here, and we're gonna go into it. So how did y'all even identify this market?
So yeah, I guess why Atlanta? I mean, really, if you just look at any of the reports you see, it's always in one of the top reports in terms of, job growth, right? You're really looking at the fundamentals. I mean, I like to say in real estate, you look at how do I get into a property, right? And really a property that you're continuously reducing risk as you dig into it, right? So it starts with the mass market, right? Pick markets that are growing, right? Don't pick a Detroit, right? I know there's all this rumors and hype that Detroit's coming back, but it's not, right? And and if it does come back, that's great. But also, you took a
Detroit's
huge
still
risk.
a good city, though.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean,
it's
again, we're
just
talking numbers here, right?
Population growth is not coming back.
Well, let me backtrack. So I like multifamily, or what we do. Why? Because it's a people game and it's a numbers game, right? Very analytical, and I love the kind of people and relationships aspect. And so numbers don't lie. Right, and so that's kind of, I'll leave it at that. And so, you look at markets that are growing, job growth, population growth, right? Kind of the macroeconomics, right? Diversified, things like that. And so back to Beaumont earlier, Beaumont's not just oil. There's there's a lot of chemical in Beaumont, and it's one of the largest ports, et cetera. So again, you look for diversity. We don't like cities that like Midland and Odessa that are just really 100% dependent on oil, right? And so you kind of start with, okay, there's this macro city, kind of have the, a good outlook in terms of what's going on. Does it have diversity? Does it have job growth? Great, it does. So Atlanta's always in the, usually the top 10 list you see. And so then from that, kind of you start to dig in the next layer. Can I find actual opportunity there, right? Right now, we like Dallas, we like Houston, but we don't own a deal in Houston or Dallas, right? Even though we're based in Houston. And why? It's not because we don't know the brokers, right? It's because right now price points are so high, we cannot find real return for our investors, right? We are looking for, actually cash flowing assets. And so, Atlanta was a market that we identified that had kind of what we're looking for. And then kind of digging in, the price points are still nice, right? They feel like it's where Houston and Dallas were 2 years ago. And so, once we've gotten into Atlanta, and we also knew someone that was there as well, and kind of were able to piggyback on some of his network, right? You don't want to just hop in a city cold turkey. You really want to know, hey, who's a good property manager there? Has someone vetted them? Who's, a good GC there? And so kind of, you need to line up some things before you hop in. But Atlanta was a market we saw. We liked it. It has, good performing, pockets, right? In terms of where you can find good price points. And so, with that said, the first property is a property in Decatur, which for those of you who don't know, it's kind of east to south Atlanta. And I mean, it's an area where there's a lot going on. And so this is a property that kind of stumbled on. Not a lot of people looked at it because it had some down units and needed work, right? It's, multifamily is not always sexy, right? Some of these, you roll up your sleeves and get in there and bring these units online, solve the problems. And so with this property, I mean, the owners that had it before us just had did not know what they were doing, right? These are guys that accidentally got into an apartment because they were guys that, used to do a lot of flips, and somehow they stumbled across this. And, there's just a lot of deferred maintenance, but for these 9 down units, they were down. Why? Because they had essentially part of the building was on a slope, and the back half had a sump that was basically, sewage would fill up and it would pump it into the city, kind of on a cycle, right? I know it's not.
We weren't supposed to talk about this story, all right?
Well, no, just to kind of iterates the example. And so, long story short, these 9 units were down. A lot of people, shied away because that's work to do. But guess what? Therein lies the opportunity. And so once we got out there, did our due diligence, and you'd think this pump must have been, a $300,000 expense if they were just too cheap to fix. $30,000, right? Yeah. That's the cost to put a brand new top of the line commercial grade. So whenever the company we had come out there and do the work, they were like, these guys only had 1 pump down there and it was residential grade. Versus now we have 2 pumps down there. It's on an actual maintenance cycle. And guess what? Bringing those units online created how much in value, right? I mean, a ton of value. So that was the business plan. So that was kind of the first deal. A little bit more work than kind of a normal deal, but it helped us get into Atlanta. And so kind of, we've crossed that threshold. That deal's, it's kind of now it's stabilized past kind of where we were before. And then, with that, brokers start to know you as good, easy buyers, guys they like working with, and word starts to get around, and so
that can perform, right? I mean, I think a lot of people, they like the idea of multifamily, but they don't really realize all of the intricacies that go into the closing process. So the brokers have this shield up, right? Like even if you call them and you got a smooth sales pitch, they're going to be looking you up. Can these people perform? Can they raise the equity? Can they line up the debt? And can they close the deal? And so, obviously, we're able to kind of show that track record and that experience. But, obviously, we did have partners out there as well. Mark Kinney was one of our partners on that deal and some of our other Atlanta properties. So he had that track record as well. So I think the other part of multifamily that we love is the leverage, right? Not only the leverage on the financing side, we just leverage partnerships. Other people's strengths might be your weaknesses and vice versa, right? So, but to kind of just, reinforce what Feras said about Atlanta, obviously everybody knows Atlanta, right? I mean, it's not like, this Sleepy Hollow, because I'll have a on people.
It's not a city you have to explain where it is on the map to people, right?
Like we've got investors in LA. They're like, where the heck is Beaumont at? They have to kind of like bring up the Google map. I'm going to show you where Beaumont is. You don't have to say that for Atlanta, right? It's like a Dallas or a Houston or whatever. So, but it's a logistics hub. Fortune 500 companies call it home. Got a lot of higher education. When you're moving to the southeast from the north or from anywhere else in the country, you're probably moving to the Atlanta MSA. And so we had known that. It's a market that me and Feras were familiar with for quite some time. So we have been looking there, for a little while, and we just found that opportunity, and we're able to kind of segue that into some ownership in that market.
Yeah, and then kind of maybe to the story, to the first deal. Whenever we were out there doing due diligence, we asked that broker, hey, what else do you have coming up for sale? Well, guess what? That broker said, hey, I have this other deal that's coming up in a month, right? And it's like, I have the exclusive, we're going to start marketing in a month. And so, before we flew back, Ben and I go out there, take a look at the deal. We're like, man, this is actually a nice deal. Like we fell in love with the property, really spacious, great location. And so I remember on the flight back, we're literally sitting there on the computers, crunching the numbers, and we're like, yeah, this is a deal. And so we're able to basically get that deal locked up before it really went out. I mean, it went out to market on a Monday. By Wednesday, we already had a signed LOI before anyone had really taken a look at the property.
Yeah,
and so you start to kind of really snowball.
And we know some of the guys that were taking a peek out there. And like, some of them were trying to fly out there. They were a little upset that we had already kind of wrapped it up. But, most of the time, these things are getting done off market. I mean, there's going to be stuff that's on market. Don't get me wrong. But, a lot of these deals, they just want to get done. Good buyer, good seller, and like, let's just get this transaction done. And so, obviously we were a known entity to this broker, and so he vouched for us to the seller, and it kind of came together, and we got that one.
Yeah, no, I mean, he really did go to the seller and vouch for us, right? And so, that's why I tell people, I mean, be a smart buyer and be a good buyer.
Yeah.
Don't be a painful buyer to work with. It's not about nickel and diming the seller on one deal. Because guess what? If you're a pain to work with, that broker's never going to give you that other deal.
Yeah.
And at the same time, too, if a broker brings you a deal, if you're going to sell that deal, you go to that broker first, right? Brokers know that, right? And so, they expect to get that because, again, they did you a favor. And so you really try to, brokers are a partner in this business. So you really need to kind of put them at that level and treat them with kind of that. So.
It just as a piggyback to what Feras said, I think being a good, buyer is important for the broker, but it's also important for the sellers because some of the sellers, especially on that second property, he owns throughout Atlanta.
Yeah, 2,000
Guess what?
units.
So if we show ourselves as being a good buyer, he could potentially, put another deal in front of us. Or at least if we win it, even through an on-market process, he's going to know these guys are going to perform. Let's just go with disrupt. And so that's important when you're talking with the brokers, is that you're genuine and you have all these things lined up. You've got the team, you've got the financing lined up, you've got an idea of how you're going to raise the equity. Don't just go in here half-cocked, because you're not going to know what you're doing. This is too much money on the line to just go in there thinking that you can put it all together, after the fact. Or they're going to smell that a mile away, and it's not going to turn out very well.
And I think having the team is really important.
It's huge.
That's
huge.
That's why one thing I learned in multifamily. Multifamily is a team sport. You have to find deal sponsors that have that track record and the operations and stuff, because I've been wanting to get into Atlanta for multifamily for a long time as well, and I was like, who are the big players over there? Mark, Ben, and Feras. So the only way I could get into Atlanta was partnering with y'all and bringing y'all value. So it's just like, that's something to keep in mind whenever everyone says they want to syndicate. Find a way to add value to the partnership. There's so many different ways. So kind of break down what are different ways people add value on the partnership side.
Yeah, maybe I'll get into that. So because we get asked that a lot. How do I get into the space? And really tell people the first thing is go invest with someone, right? Whether it's us, other people, me, I did it personally. I invested with 3 different people, saw what I liked and didn't like. And then from that, right, you start to figure out, okay, well, we want to be the best operators in the business. So what are the things I liked? What are the things I didn't like? And how do we do these and avoid these? And so, but as an investor, you see, how does the paperwork look like? How does the PPM look like? How did the team that's buying it speak about the property, right? What are the things that they looked for, that they liked about the property? And more importantly, did what they perform once you got into the deal, right? And so did it work out? And so you learn a lot just doing that. Then kind of the next thing from that is really find people, other operators, and find ways to add value. And so to your question, ways people could add value, bring a deal. That's always one of them, right? Even if it's a big deal. Again, it's a relationship business. I tell someone, if they had a $40 million deal, please don't, if it's a deal, please bring it to us. We'll figure out a way to get it done, right? And even, if an $80 million deal showed up tomorrow, that's obviously bigger than anything we've ever looked at. But again, if it's a deal, you can find and put together the team to get it done. And so, finding a deal is a good one. Another one is, people can work together and help raise equity, right? There's a lot. The business requires money, requires trust, and it's a relationship business. And so, raising equity is one, helping operate a property is another one too, right? We've partnered with people in cities that are local, that gives us boots on the ground there, right? Then that person can help us. Hey, how does the work look like from the GC? Hey, can you go check and just really drive by the property from time to time, or just show up unexpectedly? Was the property clean? Did it look like, what you had expected? And so, that's another way, right? Helping with kind of operations can go on and on and on. So those are really, in my mind, am I missing anything? Those are kind of really the biggest ways to help add value, I'd say.
Yeah, just to, as a recap, right? Helping raise equity, signing on the loan.
Yeah, that's another one I missed.
Being a personal guarantor is huge. Which is you bring your balance sheet, you bring your network.
Yeah, and so for those that don't know, in our business, right, whenever we take down a loan, if it's a $20 million purchase price, like Retreat was, it's, in that scenario, the people that sign on the loan need to have a combined net worth of $20 million. Yeah. And so, bringing people on that maybe have the net worth, the balance sheet, and the liquidity, there's also a liquidity requirement, can help you, kind of get that done. And then I guess maybe the other part of that too is earnest money. Yeah. We had 3 deals going on at once, and we had like $700,000 of earnest money out at one time, right? We don't have that kind of cash just laying around, and so people come on, and they provide that value, and you figure out ways to bring them into the team.
Yeah, structure that. Those are huge. So and that's true adding value to the transaction. So those people kind of are able to kind of come on board on the GP side, the Class B side, the manager side of the deal. However you structure your deals, right? It's more the manager side versus members who are going to be more passive. And that's how you get your credibility. That's how you get your track record. That's how you build up your resume. And a lot of people trying to get into the business need to understand that you have to add some level of value, right? And if you can't bring $20 million balance sheet or $500,000 in earnest money or whatever it might be, right? Maybe you can hustle up some equity. Maybe you can hustle up a deal. Maybe you can, go out and bird dog deals in a market that, sponsors want to be in, right? And I think that adds value. I think people need to realize that is the biggest part of this industry is, there's so many people that want to do stuff, but there's not a lot of people that are willing to go and do what they need to do to add value to get into a deal.
I tell people half the business is just showing up.
Yeah,
it's very
it's
true in this
huge,
business.
you
Get
know.
out to the conferences, meet the people, figure out what they're looking for and what you have to offer, and how do you help accomplish the same goals.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I agree. Like if you can find ways to add value that they don't really expect, you see some certain needs that they have and you fill that, that's the best way. I want to go into the more of the passive investor side. Like what, as a passive investor, what should people look for in a deal and how should they vet sponsors and different things like that?
So I think, you want me to?
Go for it.
Okay. So, we co-invest as well. So, you can look at us from, we're the manager side, but we're also on the passive side as well. So we believe in our deals. And I would say that in itself is probably one of the biggest things that a passive investor should be looking for in a sponsorship team. Are they co-investing in the deal? Now, that doesn't mean like, they got to put up $1 million of a $2 million raise, right? That's ridiculous. But do they have some skin in the game, right? And is it not $5 or $10 grand? Yeah. Because that means that they believe in the deal and they're going to put their money where their mouth is. Yeah. That's numero uno.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest pet peeves, right? Whenever I invest people, it's like whenever they didn't have that, I'm like, where's the alignment of interest here, right? So,
yeah. So you got to have that, right? I think the other thing that you look for in sponsors is obviously track record. And some people that might be starting off, they're like, well, I don't have the track record, right? What do I do, right? Do you have any kind of business acumen, right? Have you started other businesses? Because really what we're doing here is it's not necessarily real estate. We're buying a business. We're trying to improve the profitability of that business. It just happens to be an apartment complex, right? So do you have entrepreneurial background and starting and being successful in the business world? And so that's huge if you're starting off, right? So looking for that as a passive investor and a sponsorship team is huge as well. And then, you said track record, we talked about, obviously co-investing, but I think, also looking at the deal, looking at the team, looking at the area, and making sure that those all kind of align with your risk profile. Some people are going to be short-term investors. Some people are going to be long-term investors. Some people are going to like Texas deals. Some people are going to like Georgia deals. We found that out. We've got hundreds of active investors that work with us, and each one is different. They've got different goals. So you got to make sure that deal, that team, that property align with your risk and the returns that you're looking for. And so as long as all those kind of fit together, then you might have a fit there. But I always encourage people to ask questions too. I think the one thing that people don't do enough of is question the sponsorship team on things that they're doing or track records or dissecting the deal a little bit.
And that leads to I think one other point that I think is missing from that list is really accessibility, right? Like how accessible are the sponsors? Are they the sponsors that show up whenever they need to raise money? And after that, maybe you get a quarterly report from them, right? I mean, for us, we do monthly reports. That was the pain point where if you get quarterly reports, a lot goes on in a month, right? And so, but that's one part of it. And is the person approachable? Can I get a hold of them when I want to, right? And so we try to make ourselves very approachable, both, whenever we're, raising for a deal and whenever we've closed and operated the deal. And, investors have that level of comfort, have the level of confidence, and they know that they can pick up the phone and if they can't, they can email us and we'll probably call them right back. And so you try to make yourself available to investors, and investors start to appreciate that. And they start to get more comfortable, start to ask more questions. Because for us, an educated investor is a good investor. Someone that understands the business, understands what the plan is, and understands, here's what we're trying to accomplish, here's where we are, and here's kind of the plan to get there. And so we want our investors to ask questions and kind of know that we're there to help answer them. So
absolutely, and just as an addition to that, just being out there. Some people are kind of in the they don't want to be in the spotlight, right? But me and Feras, it's not all about being in the spotlight. It's hey, we're putting ourselves out there. So and we have investors that come to our events and stuff like that. I mean, they wouldn't show up if we weren't doing what we were doing. They wouldn't say the things that they say about us if we weren't performing the way that we were performing. So I think also just kind of putting yourself out there. And is this person in the shadows, or are they really trying to kind of be a part of the community and give back and answer questions when questions need to be answered? But I think the other thing too about looking for a sponsor, not everything is sunshine and roses. Obviously that deal that performed, in the end it turned out great, but that could have been devastating to me personally, financially, and to a lot of other people, personally as well. But, it ended up going the right way. But it's all about communication when bad things happen, right? You know, because these things don't always go smoothly. So that's the other thing too, you know, how much, you know, like Feras had mentioned, you're on a monthly basis, right? But I think
How
it's
transparent are they?
Yeah, the good,
That's what
the
it
bad,
is.
and the ugly.
We literally have we're starting to kind of, we're still trying to figure out what our favorite format is, but we've had, you know, our monthly update which says the good, the bad, right? Really saying, here are the things that we are happy about this deal. Here are things that, you know, and they're not necessarily bad. There are things that we're looking to improve. And so
They're challenges.
It's things that we are kind of setting ourselves up saying, hey, you know, these are the main things we're really kind of heads down focused on to help keep going.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, I think you know, all those points are really awesome. So if y'all are watching this, be sure to leave us questions and comments on this. We want to be able to. We're doing a live Q&A at the end. So let's talk about you know, our partnership and retreat at Stone Mountain and our most recent closing, because this is the deal that literally has changed my life. So it's just been amazing to work with y'all. So.
Well, we're glad we could be a part of that, man. I mean, you added a tremendous amount of value. I mean, people that are watching, you know, we don't say this lightly, man. You know, the energy that you bring to the table, the value that you brought to the transaction, and the equity raise part of the deal was tremendous, and you know, it was a great experience for us as well, man. So we appreciate that.
I mean, for us, you know, like we've been successful because we partner with people. Right, you pick strategic people that have the drive, the hustle, the same end goals, and you figure out, okay, how do we bring these people on, and we all kind of grow together. So
yeah. I mean, we both liked Atlanta, you know, and I think that's the starting point, right?
Ronny likes Atlanta too much. I think Ronny likes to try to get out there often.
Ronny's like,
Ronny will call us and say, hey, can we get out to Atlanta next Wednesday? I'm like, yeah, let me think about that, Ronny. So
I actually made them all fly out so we can do some filming. We literally had a camera guy follow us around.
You did, man.
So for our investors who invest in Retreat at Stone Mountain, there are going to be more videos coming out, and also for Marketplace Square. I think that's another thing I'm bringing, is just like more different ways of like communicating with people and stuff. Because like I wish like I could you know, see y'all on y'all's first deal and just watch a video, right? Yeah. And that's what I did with the Retreat at Stone Mountain. Is I literally filmed the entire process from my brother dropping me off at the airport at 4:30 in the morning to us eating breakfast at the hotel, and then us driving the deal. So it's just something that I wanted to add, just so people understood the process. So
I'm gonna ruin it for you. If you were to watch that video, Ben still didn't have any hair, so he didn't lose it on our deals. So it's
it was long ago. Yeah, no, I think you brought up a good point too, man. So obviously you helped on the equity raise. You did a tremendous job there too, but I think adding value, you had a unique, you know, you have a following on social media, you have a unique understanding of how marketing and social media works too, and that's huge. I think the whole basis of our name is, you know, disrupt. We're trying to disrupt how this industry is working, right? And I think that coincides with a lot with what Propelio is doing as well, right? You know, but we're trying to introduce these different things into
change the norm, do something different.
It's a very button up, you know, commercial real estate, right? And we're trying to introduce some of this stuff, you know, videos, social media, all this stuff, and technology, because we both come from a tech background, you know, into this space, and you kind of, those goals kind of align with what you were doing. So that was huge, man. So I appreciate it.
And it's been great. So on the screen you'll see.
So this is the property you were just asking about, right? So it's a 212 unit property in Atlanta, and you know, this one, I mean, again, it's all relationships. So this deal is a deal that, you know, essentially, I mean, I don't want to get too much in, but you know, we kind of have a good relationship with the broker. You know, had lunch with him in Atlanta, and kind of fast forward, you know, a few weeks later, he knew he's kind of, we're out there looking for deals. Sent him a bottle of barbecue sauce, and kind of, he tells him how much he likes barbecue sauce. He's a good guy, and really, you know, he calls us one day and he's like, hey, here's a deal that we have the exclusive, you know, and showing a few people, are you guys interested? And so we took a look at the deal, you know, liked it, and it was a great price point, right? 80s product, you know, much better price than we expected. And, you know, we made a run for it, and so that's a deal we were able to get down. And, you know, this is kind of where we had to be more creative, because we had just done a deal in San Antonio, put together a good team on that as well, and got that deal closed. That was a big raise, so that was an $18 million purchase, and now this one lined up at the exact same time. And so kind of on our side, we were like, okay, you know, let's really figure out how do we structure the team to help accomplish this goal and get it closed. And so kind of, you know, that's where, you know, we identified you as someone who were like, hey, this is someone we've known for a while, trustworthy, someone that kind of has that drive, and let's figure out a way to make it happen. So
Absolutely.
And talk to us about like a little bit more of the details of Retreat at Stone Mountain, like where Stone Mountain, like what did you like about it, and like what was the real value add opportunity for this deal? Because whenever I walked it, I was like, wow, I can't believe this is like.
Yeah, and I think your viewers will eventually see some of this content. Some of them we've already dropped some of those videos, but I think the big thing was it was an 80s product, good price point. I mean, even to this day, we're talking to some other brokers who are like, you got a good deal. We got good leverage on it. But some of the things that we really liked about it, obviously it had 80s construction, which was nice, individual HVACs, pitched roofs, all those kind of, newer construction, things that really you're looking for versus chillers and, flat roofs and stuff like that. So that was one thing, right? It was in the Atlanta market. It was in the northeast part of Atlanta.
We've been starting to build volume, right? So we kind of focus as, hey, as you have more property, as you build a portfolio in a market, you can start to do things like, let's go ahead and, instead of getting the landscaping guy to bid the price for cutting the grass at this property, no, I want you to give me a bid for 4 of them, right? Really start to kind of, push and kind of grow the business just by leveraging the economies of scale.
Yeah, I mean, economies of scale is huge, right? Because you're flying out there anyway to look at your property. Now, instead of one property, you've got 4, and you spread that flight 4 ways across all the properties, and then everybody benefits from that. So, obviously, that was the reason why we continue to buy in Atlanta is the increased.
We've had success there, and each deal becomes more efficient across the board, and so.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is you had direct competitors right next door to this property that had kind of gone through some of the value add improvements, and they were getting anywhere from $175 to $300 more per month per unit in rent. So it was right there, right beside us, in our face, that there was a ton of meat on this bone. And so you couple that with 80s construction, good price point, being in Atlanta, economies of scale, and we had a home run. We got good conservative financing on it as well, but it still allowed it to cash flow. So I think our investors really like that. We took a conservative approach to the financing, which we always do. We always look at how do we maximize returns, but also be, looking at that conservative leverage point.
Continuously take risk out of a deal.
Absolutely.
Right, so there was enough meat on the bone to say, hey, guess what? Instead of going in 75% leverage, let's do 65.
Yep.
Right, so we're able to go in less leverage, and it was our first deal doing that low of leverage, and our investors, it was different to see the reaction, because some of them, the guys that'll put in certain amounts came in even bigger, because to them it becomes a lower risk deal. And so this deal was kind of funny, because I remember whenever Ben and I both first were underwriting this deal, we pulled the comps and the rents, and there was one deal that was just an outlier. Literally, this deal was so much higher in rents that we just ignored it. We were like, something weird's going on with this property. It had a gold-plated, faucets or something. And so we ignored that deal, and then we underwrote it. The deal still looked really good, looking at everything else. And this property was unique too, because our property manager used to manage the deal across the street. So very familiar with the market, very familiar with the area, and knew kind of what rents could go for. But the deal looked good. We went out there and took a look, and we go to that deal next door and see what the heck's going on here. And we realize it's the exact same property as the one we're buying. Ours was phase 1. That one is 1 year newer, phase 2, right? And so instantly we're like, hey, that deal we were ignoring is essentially the best kind of comp you could even ask for. And so then you kind of take that and start to dig in, start to identify, hey, does the numbers all make sense from the financing to the rent push, to the, you can't push rents day one. And so really doing the full underwriting, and then you get into due diligence and start to, do the on-site, dig into the property, right? Walk every unit, look at all the leases, really kind of make sure everything's copacetic. And, once we kind of had done that, we're like, all right, we're ready to roll.
Yeah. And we're adding a ton of value too. I mean, it's just not like walking into additional rent bumps. I mean, I think there's a ton of value add that we're doing, but I think we're doing 1.2 million in rehab on that. And we're improving the interiors as well as the exteriors, as well as making it more energy efficient. So
and adding in amenities. I mean, you go in to build a community and update, improve life, period, right, for people.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, adding in, playgrounds if they're not there, or pergolas, or barbecue pits, or, figuring out what's needed. And so, this property just needs a little bit of TLC, and, it's already there. And so this one was nice because it was stabilized, so it didn't have the down units and kind of, all of the other distractions, right? You get to focus purely on improving the property and pushing, kind of helping improve the units and the exteriors and interiors to kind of help push the NOI. So
absolutely.
Yeah, and I think Retreat at Stone Mountain, I think people actually like pictures don't do justice, right? That's why like doing the videos and stuff, like I feel like that helped a lot as far as people really understanding that deal.
And it had a quiet vibe to it too, which is one of the
Very
things
quiet.
that we liked about it. It was just tired. It just needed it needed some pop. We needed to do some paint to it. So I think, you know, once you have the right amount of capital and a good deal that's got just a good vibe to it, you know, you can go a long way with that.
Yeah, especially the trees all around and different things like that. I mean, there's so many reasons we like the deal.
So would you say you were like Grant Cardone? You walked on the property and you got that shiver in your spine?
Yeah. No, it's all. You know, one thing I do whenever I walk deals is like I always trust my gut feeling with everything because it's always, you know, I've always had that sort of sense and foresight, right? So whenever I was driving up before y'all came in the next day with Eli, I was like, wow, we're really buying this thing. You know, it was really, really nice. And it's like, you know, for a B class at the price point we got it for, like we looked at deals in Dallas and Houston and whatnot. It just, like, it only makes sense.
And even that, the deal across the street was 10 years older, traded for what?
72?
Like $5 a door more than we bought it for. So, I mean, great price point. So everything about it was check. And like, all right, let's get this done. So.
Do it.
And also another one, we're actually gonna go to break. So if y'all have any questions or comments about multifamily, this is your opportunity. So leave some questions and comments below. After we come back from the break, we're gonna talk about Marketplace Square Apartments. This is the current deal we have because we wanna give you the past, you know, the present, and then the future with all these deals because we're constantly acquiring, so we want to show y'all the entire process. So stay tuned.
The Propelio Academy, an all-in-one education resource for training in wholesales, subject to wraps, short sales, flips, rentals, BRRRR, property management, and more. Go to propelio.com/academy to get your scholarship today. Propelio.com. What does Propelio offer? Lead generating websites, access to true MLS comps, off-market lead lists, and deal alerts. Get them all today at Propelio.com.
Welcome back to the Commercial Cash Flow Show. So we're going to talk about Marketplace Square. This is a deal we're currently acquiring. So this one is actually a really interesting one. I really think, and we'll have Feras dive into the whole thing.
This deal, so it's a deal we're currently doing. So for those of you that know me, you know I'm a Starbucks guy. I'm probably in a Starbucks, you know, a few hours every day work. You know, I mean, that's my comfort place. And so, you know, in Atlanta, if you kind of pull up a map in Atlanta, everyone in the audience should do it. Go search Google Maps and search for Starbucks. And you'll see that the only Starbucks in kind of west to south Atlanta is in this area called Camp Creek, right? And so I know they're building one further. I mean, there is far south, right? But kind of, you know, within 10 miles of downtown, that's it. And so it was an area that Ben and I both know because guess what? Whenever we're in Atlanta, if we're meeting people, if we just got, you know, we're going to that Starbucks. So very familiar with the area, and this deal kind of came up, and we had looked at it really kind of the end of the summer. And, you know, we had made an offer, didn't win it, right? We got it because again, we can't come up on our price. Our price impacts our returns, but we can come up on our risk. We can come up on other ways to kind of, you know, hey, sweeten it with the seller. And so, but it's a deal that we didn't win. Someone had tied it up for a few months, right? And basically dragged it out with the sellers, and the sellers really needed to sell, right? They had 3 other big projects they're working on. And essentially, the sellers are people that do these big, heavy, deep value adds. They'll find properties and put a ton of money into it, redo everything they can, right? That makes sense. And so that was a situation, but you know, the flip side is the sellers, you know, needed cash. And so this is a deal that the broker called us like, hey, do you guys still want it at your price? Like, yeah, I mean, we're down. So we love the area, we knew the property. And so we went out there and kind of were able to get it under contract. And it's 152 unit. There's a picture of it for those of you in the audience to kind of take a look at it. But it's a deal that we love because guess what? The sellers had already replaced all the siding, had put in brand new balconies, had put in brand new rails, right? You can kind of see that in the picture. 90% of the ACs are brand new, 90% of the water heaters are brand new in a great location, right? And so immediately it's like check. I'm like, all right, this deal, you know, so now the question is, well, what's the work here, right? Well, there's 9 units that are down here, and there's 15 more that we need to kind of update. And so, people didn't like the deal originally, not as much interest because it was a bridge deal. But therein, I guess, lies the opportunity. So it's a deal that, we love the area, getting at a good price point, and we're going to have to do the homework. And again, this is where it goes back to the team, right? So we have another member of the team that has a construction company, right? He's helping manage kind of getting the work done. But kind of all said and done, you put together the team, buy the property, and execute on the business plan. And now you hold on to an asset, that's fantastic location, mostly updated, and you're ready to roll. And then on top of that too, one unique thing about this property is it's got approved for what's called the noise reduction program. And basically the government is going to put in $2 million to update all the windows, all the sliding glass doors, and all of the all the front doors with noise-proof windows, doors, and glass doors. And so, basically this property is going to have all brand new windows, all brand new siding. It's an awesome asset. And I think there is a slide somewhere that maybe will show up that if you kind of keep going and kind of show you guys what just maybe like right there. So you can kind of see, the current owners put $2.7 million into it, right? On top of that, with the government, they're going to put in another $2 million, and we're going to put in $1 million to finish it out. So this property is going to have $6 million in improvements the past 2 years, and we're buying it at $9 million, and our cost basis will be 10 once you do a rehab. So $6 million in updates on a $10 million cost basis. It's in a great area. So,
and I would say it's probably the most similar to what we did at Huntington. Through a lease up process, the amount of capex that we're putting into it. I mean, so you can see what happened on Huntington, and that's what we're expecting to happen on this one as well. But it's all about getting in, executing on the business plan as well. So, wanted to obviously tell people, yes, we are in the middle of a raise. This is a 506c offering. It is for accredited investors only. I want to put that caveat
that's why
out
we can
there.
talk about it right now.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's why we're allowed to kind of talk about it. But we had talked to about kind of coming on here and just kind of going through the math and the deal, just why we like the deal versus trying to raise equity for it, right?
Yeah, because I think one thing people need to see is the actual process of the deal, right? And this is a good real life example because this is a 506c offering for accredited investors only. So we can actually talk about literally right now while we're in the deal, about to close, all the different stuff.
2 weeks from today.
Yep. 2 weeks from today. So what else?
I think that the biggest thing, like Feras had mentioned, is is the amount of it's going to be turnkey.
Yeah, I like to hold properties that are heavily updated, especially if we're in it for the long term, right?
Yeah, we are. And so on this deal, it's a short-term bridge loan, or it's a 3 years with 2 extensions. So if we need to hold it a little bit longer, we can. But we want to get permanent long-term financing on this property because we like the area, we believe in the area, and it's already gentrifying. You've got, obviously Camp Creek Marketplace, which we've got another slide.
Yes, I didn't really talk about the location, but tell us more about the location.
So I think Camp Creek Marketplace is really the biggest driver in this area, and that's where our Starbucks is, right here. So you can kind of see some of the things that are there, right? You've got Target, you've got Chick-fil-A, which I love.
So our property's the star in the bottom right.
The star in the bottom right, and you can see where some of this stuff is,
AMC Theater, BJ's, Old Navy.
2,000 direct jobs, and it serves an area of about 460,000 people. So on top of this being right next to the property, right, you've got a ton of stuff that is driving the economy elsewhere around here too. You've got a lot of manufacturing, logistics, transportation hubs, all within there.
Amazon and Google both put in new warehouses, pretty cool spot.
Yeah, Amazon and Google. So you've got all of these economic drivers, right? And so we always look to identify properties that have a story around where they're located at, right? The fundamentals are what they are. The numbers have to work.
Numbers
but there
don't lie.
also has to be a story around where it's located at and how we're structuring that part of the process as well. So those were the 2 things that were just completely just blown away, on this one. And then once again, the similarities between that and Huntington are pretty stark. I mean, it's right there. We're going to be putting this amount of capex into it. That's going to just drive the value up. And the other thing that I wanted to tell your viewers too is, right there behind that Target, you've got new Class A that's being built or has been built, right? So you've got this whole area is being gentrified. That is what you're looking for. You're looking for a Class C deal and a Class B or A area, right? That you can prop up to where the market is, because that's where the real value is going to be.
And then on top of that too, the current owner has already proven the business model to us, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
they have, of the 152, essentially 120 of these, or 90 of these units are updated.
Yeah.
Right, and so we're going to update the rest, bring the rest online. But those updated units, they've already shown us what they can get the rents for. They didn't just do 1 or 2, and then it's like, oh, hey, you can get this premium for doing this. No, they did 90 of them, right? And so we don't like to buy deals where they only have 1 or 2 units, because the brokers will say, hey, they did 2 units and they got the $50 rents, and you could do the rest of the property and get those rents. Well, to me, that's not really proven, right? They might have had 1 or 2 people that are willing to pay a little bit more, but with that deal, it's a nice story, right? Kind of go in, do what's already been done, finish it out, and hold on to the thing, and then it's kind of like a cow, you just keep milking it. So.
Yeah, and then you got the economies of scale, right? Once and again, it's another asset in Atlanta that we can spread our expenses across, and you just start, on this deal and retreat, economies of scale. The powerfulness of that is, we were able to go back and renegotiate some of these things, some of these contracts that we had with some of these vendors, including our property management company. You took it from, I think, 4 down to 3. That drives NOI in itself, right? So you're able to give them enough volume where they want to not only take care of you, but they're also willing to give you a better deal. So that's only just a win-win for our investors as well.
Another thing too to mention is, kind of, if you're buying a deal that needs work, make sure your property manager can handle that, right? So
Absolutely.
Luckily, I mean, our Atlanta property manager, great team, great operator. So we kind of have that confidence too that, hey, here's the plan and they can help get it done.
Absolutely. Yep. So we're excited about that one.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. I guess we can go to the screen just so people can see what these interior upgrades look like, because it's actually really nice. You got granite, you got the cabinets, all
So
that.
you got some of it right here. If we could kind of
go up a little bit, I think. Yeah, up, right here.
There you go.
Yeah.
So here's this is what the property interiors look like.
I mean, it's a full redo, right? I mean, they even went as far as converting ACs from kind of window units or wall units to normal kind of centralized AC. So I mean, everything was redone, right? From new siding, on the interiors, from new carpet, flooring, doors, trims, right? Kitchens, cabinets. I mean, the A to Z. And so beautiful asset. I mean, it's a nice product, and so
And the cool thing I like about this is the same feeling I got with Retreat when we drove up on it the first time.
Spine was shaking.
Yeah, I was like,
Tingling in your spine.
I was like, man, this is like, it feels really good, especially like standing, where like the playground, the different things like that. It was just cool, man. So it's just, they did a really good job with the renovations, and
they did. It's just, we love these types of deals too, where, they've done a little bit of the work, but they left some actual meat on the bone for us to kind of come in and finish it out, right? And that's why we got it at such a good price point, because it still needed a little bit of work. But, we've got that experience. We've done that on all of our properties have rehab. They have, $1 million rehab. So we're used to doing the heavy lifting on our deals. And I think that's why we didn't shy away from this deal where maybe some people would have, because we saw past that. We saw what's this deal going to look like in a year or two? What's that area going to look like in a year or two? And both of those things just, boom, they're going to look great. And they're going to continue to grow, and they're going to continue to improve. And that was the reason why we were attracted to Marketplace.
yeah, I think this one is really good.
Yeah, so we're excited about this project.
Anything else y'all wanted to add about this one?
No, I think, they did the heavy lifting. We're just going to come in and
Proven
and kind of
value
finish it
add,
up.
go in, and finish it up. That's that's the easiest of the kind of deals. It's not the kind of deal, we don't have to be super visionary, right?
Yeah.
We're not having to reinvent the wheel here. Those are
Yeah, I mean, the ones where you're really having to, there is some operational inefficiencies, in the way that they're doing it, but it's not where it's completely mismanaged and running it into the ground. They're fairly good operators. It's more, adding that value, which is, with our partner on it, Oliver, he's able to manage that rehab, get that done very quickly. We put in Province, which is our management company, who we already have a good relationship with, and they are roll up your sleeves Class C operators. They know how to manage these deals. So you combine those two things with our economies of scale, and that's that's the reason why we like it.
Yeah, I really like this one as well. Talk about a little bit of what returns would look like on a deal like this.
So it's about a roughly $2.5 million raise. So that's and we're going to be putting in several $100,000 of that as well. I think the total return on this deal is
We
going to
actually
be.
have a slide. If you go to the last slide on that, you can kind of take a quick run through there if you want to see what the numbers actually look like.
We'll get to the slide here, and we can kind of give you real world numbers. Let's just, if we could start right here. This kind of gives everybody a nice little recap of the deal, right? We're getting it at 59 a door. There's our loan amount around $8 million. 3-year with the 2 1-year extensions. There's our interest rate. There's a rehab budget. It's about $960,000. And then we've got obviously reserves, and so the total needed to close is about 2.5. So this kind of gives a nice summary of the opportunity for everybody to kind of look at. And then farther down, we could kind of talk about the returns.
A few more slides. Keep going.
So this is rent comps, the area, business plan, rehab budget. So here's right here.
One more.
Yeah, we can kind of go through right here. So, obviously because it's a heavy value add, year one is going to be light, right?
Yeah.
But the one thing we always have on all of our deals is what's called a preferred return to our investors.
Yeah, so kind of dive into what that is, because this is why I want to show y'all an actual one, because people don't understand every deal is different, you know. And as you're looking to invest passively in deals, you need to hop on these webinars. You need to be looking at the different type of markets you want to invest in, and look at the deal sponsors who've already done the deals, and then go from there.
Yeah, so back to your question earlier, right? What to look for in a sponsor? Look for alignment of interests.
Yep.
Right? Not just them also putting money in the deal, but even the structure. So kind of our model that we've moved to is what's called a preferred return. And so what is a preferred return, right? Really what it means is that our investors will get, this deal, it's an 8% preferred return. So our investors will get 8% return on their money before we're taking anything, right? In terms of the splits. And so that kind of, as an investor, right, that's alignment of interest, because that means these guys that are operating this property, right, and us in this case, we make our money once we've gotten past that 8%. And so again, you're trying to constantly align interest to where, we're motivated and, we all have the same end goal. Get the property performing, right? Because that's whenever we start to make, our cut of it.
Absolutely. So and then that accrues as well, right? So as people, we've got an 8% return, or preferred return, right? But in year one, it's 3.28. So what does that mean for the shortfall? Well, guess what? That gets lumped in to the next year, and then the next year. And so if there's anything left when we go to sell, right? How the capital stack works is obviously the loan gets paid off. Then our equity gets their money back first.
So the investors get their investments
their return
back first.
of capital, and then they get whatever's left on the pref, right? And then we do our split. So it really incentivizes the managers, the GPs, the sponsors of the deal to go out and make this property perform, because we need to get past some of these hurdles in order for us to actually make any money. So it really does incentivize the people, and I think that's where the alignment of goals is. When you're looking at sponsors and what their splits are and what their returns are as well. So you can kind of go through this table. It's pretty self-explanatory. We kind of go through.
For those that don't know, cash on cash means return on an investment from an investor. So the bottom kind of shows, right, a sample $100,000 investment. So
so you kind of get real world numbers, right? And so you put in 100,000. We'll move on to year two. You would be expecting to get $10,858 back, right? So that's, then you got your cumulative, so that's year one, year two. And then also in year two, obviously we're refining out of the bridge loan into long-term debt. And so because of that, we've increased the value, right? So that spread now, even with conservative underwriting, we're going to be able to return about 25% of, people's money. So you put in 100,000, we're going to be able to return around 25 grand, right? So now, you've got less risk in the deal, but you're still cash flowing at the same time, which is always a nice thing.
Yeah, my favorite deal is one where you can refi out year two and get all your money back, right?
Yeah.
Because then as an investor, you basically own this property for free.
Yeah, I mean, what is it? It's an infinite return at that point, right? You have no money in the deal, but you're still making returns. What is that? That's infinite.
Divided by zero.
Yeah, those are the type of deals that we love, right? And who knows? It could, the stars could align, and cap rates could continue to compress, or the market can continue to be in our favor, and that could be 50%, or that could be 100%. But right now, we always underwrite conservatively when we're proforming these deals to our investors, and so that's where it's 25%. So then you kind of go down. You got year 3, year 4, year 5. It's a 6-year hold, right? We're looking to exit at a 7% cap. So That's, for people that don't know, that's just a valuation, right? So you're gonna have your net operating income divided by the cap rate percentage, right? Is gonna get you the value of the property. And so 7 is fairly conservative because right now, properties in that area are going to be probably 5.5 to 6.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, especially with the Treasury saying they're not going to push rates, and so I am curious if we're going to be kind of in a cycle of just low cap rates for a while. So we'll see.
You could get that. So so what does that all equate to, right? So that's about 17% average annualized return when you bake in both the cash flow as well as the proceeds. So I always kind of put that, but you can also see the total return there on a sample $100,000 investment. So this is important for your viewers to know, right? I mean, regardless if they decide to invest in this deal, it doesn't matter to us. We'd love to, but it doesn't matter. We want them to understand these concepts.
They need to understand every number on here, right?
Yeah,
everyone, even the top. What we're talking about, the pref return, the asset management fee, or the exit caps. I mean, everything on here. A true investor should understand what each of these numbers are and why they are what they are.
Yeah, and if you don't understand, you need to ask, right?
Yes.
And we've had people. I think when we started introducing preferred returns, the biggest question that we had was, what's a preferred return? And
why'd you guys add it?
Yeah, why'd you guys add it? And I think we added it because that was more in line with our investors. They just didn't know the concept. They didn't understand it, so we had to explain that. But I mean, I think cash on cash is, in the most simplistic terms, right? You have a 10% return. You put $100,000 in. How much are you going to make a year? $10,000, right? Total return is the cumulative of all the cash flow plus the net proceeds from the sale, right? Are going to get you a total return, right? And then you just divide that by the amount of years, and you get average annualized return. Now IRR, that's a whole nother concept. We won't get into that because everybody will get bored and ask way too many finance questions. But that's just how money is affected by time, right? And the good rule of thumb with all this stuff is the higher the better, right? So we wanted to kind of show that because I think there's a real world returns and real world deals, and that kind of gives people some perspective on it.
Yeah, and I think, going through different ones, as you're starting to get into multifamily, as you're starting to, if this is sparking your interest, you got to start meeting with deal sponsors and getting on these webinars and just understanding. You need to understand it completely before you invest in anything. That's why, going through the different case studies of 3 different deals, I think was really important, and why I wanted to show you, because, I mean, there's so many different ways to study multifamily. One way I've learned the best is hopping on as many webinars as possible, just to see in the sub-markets I want to invest in and I want to be in, just to really understand the whole market. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, and that's important, actually, the sub-market thing. We didn't really mention that, but, I mean, location matters, right?
Yep.
Atlanta, there's some good pockets and there's some bad pockets, especially in the South. So don't just go buy any deal you can find in Atlanta, right? Really go out there, understand what's going on in that area. I mean, definitely fly. That's why we like Atlanta. We didn't really mention that part too. Atlanta for us is an easy day trip. We literally will take a 6 a.m. flight out. A broker can call me today and say, hey, I have a deal for you. I need you to come out tomorrow. I can, you can make it happen, right? It's a 6 a.m. flight out there. Kind of get there at 9 a.m. Atlanta time, spend all day on site, take a 7 p.m. flight back, and you're good to go. It's one of the largest airports in the world, so there's flights every hour. So.
Yeah, logistics is huge in Atlanta in general. That's a big economic driver, but it's also some reasons why we look at different markets too, right? Is it within a 2 or 3 hour drive of us, or is it within a 2 or 3 hour flight of us as well?
Versus like Seattle, besides the fact we won't be able to make any money out there in terms of cash flow. I mean, I used to live in Seattle. It's a long flight. I can't day trip that.
Yeah.
So, time zones don't work in my favor. I mean, nothing about it works out too well.
So that's kind of the reasoning why we look in Atlanta and some of these other markets that we do.
Yeah, it's only like an hour and a half flight, so it's pretty easy.
It's not bad. And Dallas, investors as well, same thing. There's a ton of direct flights from Dallas to Atlanta. Same thing with Houston. So that's one of the reasons why we like it.
Awesome. Well, any final thoughts, guys?
I think that's it.
I think, we just wanted to, hopefully we add some value to everybody. We wanted to say that we're very transparent guys, very open. We like to add value. We put on conferences. One of our business partners, Kenny Wolf, who's the co-host of this, and is also a co-host of the Multifamily Investor Network with us, which is kind of a conference that we put on. We're going to be doing it in LA June 22nd. please check out the website, multifamily investor,
MFinvestorNetwork.com.
and keep up with that because we're going to be doing that almost a roadshow type event. And we're not looking to sell anything. We're looking to add value to people. We're looking to provide education to people at a very cost-effective rate, and we're not selling any mentoring or training or any of that stuff. We're trying to put an event on where people can go and network and learn from each other. Yeah. And so, I wanted to put that out there. We also run a meetup in Houston, and we always like to just add value. And so that would be my final thought is that, we're very transparent guys, and we take.
If anyone has any questions, reach out to us, right?
Yeah.
Us or Ronny. So
how can they reach out to you?
Yeah. So Feras at disruptequity.com, Feras. Ben at disruptequity.com. You don't need to know how to spell his name, and then reach out, ask questions. So.
Yeah. And I also would like to thank Propelio for hosting us.
Absolutely.
On the Commercial Cash Flow Show.
Nice.
If you haven't already checked out Propelio, please be sure to like this if you're a new viewer. And also go to Propelio.com, one of the best real estate investing softwares on the market. A lot of great tools out there. And please keep the questions and comments below. We'll be answering them even after the show. So keep them coming. And best way to reach me is Ronny at kingleyacquisitions.com. If y'all are interested in investing in multifamily, feel free to reach out to me. Send me a friend request. Send all of us friend requests. Like our Facebook pages.
We'll be your friends.
We just want to be sure we can add as much value as possible.
Absolutely.
We're very, very accessible deal sponsors, so y'all can call or text us. Whatever questions you need, that's what we're here for. But thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Commercial Cash Flow Show. Really appreciate you watching. And wherever you're watching this, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video as well. And if you found this video valuable, please share it. Thanks so much for tuning in. Take care.
Thank you.
Propelio TV is sponsored by Noble Mortgage and Investments, Batch Skip Tracing, CreativeCashflow.com, and Lifeonaire.
Hey everybody, I'm Ryan with Propelio. If you like what you saw, please subscribe. Turn on those notifications and stick around for more. We have tons of content like this all over our channel. So if you want to learn more about real estate investing, stick around, watch Propelio TV, and we'll see you later.